Hi, and welcome to Back to the Balcony, the podcast about movies and culture from a classic century. I'm your host, Jimmy England, and today's movie is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, and our guest today is Larry Smith. He's a comedian, but he's also somebody who loves Abbott and Costello, comedy in general, but all kinds of Abbott and Costello movies he's a big fan of, and this is really one of their most famous. Now, today, most people probably don't know the Bud Abbott, Lou Costello name very well, unless you're from a younger generation, from an older generation like mine. But back in the 40s, you could not overestimate how popular they were. They were just absolutely huge, and they were churning out movie after movie, and this one is one of their best. As always, this is our audio podcast for Back to the Balcony. Feel free to let it play and do whatever you want, because after I sign off, well, it's all audio. Anyway, here we are with Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
This is my Poppy's podcast. He likes to talk about movies from the 20th century. That's like a million years ago. He knows a lot, but his friends must know even more, because they're always telling him he's wrong. But he's funny and interesting and a good Poppy, even if he doesn't know what a spoiler is. Enjoy!
Hello and welcome to our monster, chiller, thriller Halloween episode of Back to the Balcony, the podcast about movies and culture from a classic century. Engineer Phil was too afraid for this one, so we've called on guest engineer Ryan Sim to take the metaphorical reins for this one. You're something of a scary guy, aren't you, Ryan?
Booze!
That was just terrible. We're joined today by one of my favorite comedians, Larry Smith. Now, normally I let the guests pick a movie, but Larry and I have talked about movies so many times, driving to and from shows, and one movie kept cropping up in conversation. So I asked him to talk about 1948's Bud Abbott and Lou Costello Meet Frankenstein. Are you a big Abbott and Costello fan, Larry?
I'm a humongous Abbott and Costello fan. I'm a humongous fan of comedy duos. That's a very unique thing in movies that I love.
You are unique in modern comedy in that you actually have worked as a double act at one time.
I did 2 years of headlining on my own before my ex-partner and I did the Chris and Larry show. We worked 50 weekends out of the year, and we went all over North America and Canada.
And how long did you stay together?
We were friends for 20 years, and we were a duo for 16.
Okay, that's a long time.
Yeah, and I'm so old and been doing comedy so long, we split 20 years ago this September.
Abbott and Costello, you say you're a big fan. So
Yeah.
Have you seen all of their films or most of their films or many
I've
of their
seen
films?
a ton of their films because luckily when the VHS craze was happening, a lot of Abbott and Costello stuff was public domain, like Jack and the Beanstalk and
yeah.
a few other movies. So you could own them really cheap. But I also liked watching videotapes of their old TV show, too. They're up there on the Mount Rushmore of comedy duos. It's kind of like them, Laurel and Hardy, and Martin and Lewis.
So what are the Stooges? A trio?
They're a trio.
They're a trio.
Yeah.
Team is a totally different feel.
And what was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? Is that a duo?
That was
That
a
was
book.
another Abbott and Costello movie.
Do you remember the first one of their movies that you saw?
The first Abbott and Costello movie I saw, and this will sound bizarre, was Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
That is bizarre because that's one of their best, isn't it?
Yeah. And it was because my dad knew I liked comedy, and
Right.
it was coming on a Saturday afternoon, and he told me, don't make plans. You're going to want to see this.
Mine was Meets the Mummy.
Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy?
Yeah.
My second one was Jekyll and Hyde with Boris Karloff.
Did they have a TV show or were they just movies?
No, they had a TV show, dude.
Early 50s.
Yep.
It was a very rough show because you're talking very early on. They started out on the Colgate Comedy Hour.
Comedy Hour, and then they got their own series.
Yes.
And the best thing about their series, and Seinfeld did a special about Abbott and Costello.
Right.
And he credits the format that they did on Seinfeld to the Abbott and Costello show because it never had a plot. It was just kind of them loosely linking together burlesque bits.
So the weird thing is that these movies were before the TV.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
48. So they did start as movies.
Yes.
Isn't that weird?
Burlesque, vaudeville, radio, movies, television, and a cartoon in the 60s that had 60 episodes.
On that one, Bud Abbott was still alive. Lou Costello had already died, but
Yeah.
Bud Abbott did the voice on there, yeah. They made 36 movies from 1940 to 1956, and in 2025 dollars, those 36 movies have grossed $2.58 billion, according to Ultimate Movie Rankings. They were listed as top 10 box office stars 8 times between 1941 and 1951, and even reached number 1 in 1942. These guys, you cannot underestimate how big they were back in the 40s. Larry, why do you think they achieved that kind of popularity? Because it was old burlesque comedy, definitely.
Right. I call them the comeback kids. For some reason, they seemed to get lucky when burlesque was closing. They moved into vaudeville, and then when vaudeville was dying, Henny Youngman got them on the Kate Smith radio show,
Right.
and they became a big hit on that. So much they had. This is unheard of. They had them do the Who's on First routine once a month. Once a month on a weekly show is insane. What was your question again? Oh my gosh.
As you're correctly identifying, they were incredibly popular, but what made them so popular?
Now, a lot of people are going to think it's because Lou Costello was so funny, and Lou Costello was super funny, and I'll say this as a funny guy in a duo. When you're the funny guy, you're the ball, and the straight man is the tetherball pole, because he keeps you being able to go out there, but only so far out there, and then keep pulling you back, unlike when you're an individual performer.
Right.
And Bud Abbott, in his whole career, was a really highly sought after and respected straight man.
It's an interesting dynamic, the straight man in burlesque, certainly, to the comedian. What do you know about how they used to get paid?
They got billed first. You always billed the straight man first, and you always paid the straight man more. Because to find a good straight man is hard. To find a good comedian's pretty easy. That was their philosophy.
I'd heard that, something like a 60-40 split that they used to do with, I think eventually, one of the things that caused a little bit of friction between the two of them was Costello wanted better recognition that he was getting monetarily.
And that happens in every comedy duo, that the funny guy starts feeling like he's not being respected.
Yeah.
And the straight man is, because, of course, the straight man comes across as the normal person, the slick person, the person of a higher standard. I used to go through that with the Chris and Larry show sometimes. You go, I'm not a moron, I play one on stage.
They went through that, and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein kind of reinvigorated their career.
Totally.
But by 1957, they broke up. Also, by that time, their popularity was definitely waning.
Oh, yeah.
So what happened? Why do you think that started to occur?
Well, the story I heard was the reason that before the breakup that they started talking through intermediaries, like they wouldn't talk to each other directly,
Right.
was because Lou Costello fired a maid, and then Bud Abbott went and hired that maid. And that was just it. And when I kept reading that and seeing that in my research,
That's
I
so
went,
weird.
that is the tip of the iceberg. I was in a duo. It's a whole bunch of little things that add up, and then there's an incident.
Yeah, it just needs one thing to trigger it. It doesn't
And
have
it's
to be
hard. It's like a marriage being in a comedy duo.
Right.
It really is, because you're with that person all the time. You're associated with that person, and you sometimes see them more than your family or your spouse or your friends.
I wonder if maybe the reason they kind of lost out was overexposure. They did an awful lot of movies. They were on TV. I don't know if they're still on radio, but they just...
I also think comedy was changing. It was post-World War II.
True.
So they got to ride that decade before the wave really crashed to change things.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, their careers came to an end at the end of the 50s. Now suddenly you've got people like Lenny Bruce and Mort Saul showing up. And comedy is starting to change. People don't want to see old burlesque routines and stuff.
I looked it up. In their early career in 41, they released 5 movies. And then 42, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, yeah, there's a ton of them.
Oh, yeah.
So think about that. That's like every 2 or 3 months. And this was also, they must have got a lot of guys through the war.
Oh,
yeah.
totally. Their big hit movie, their first movie was Night in the Tropics. But the movie that put them on the map, they did a war movie called Buck Privates that led them to doing an Army one and an Air Force one. Buck Privates was a phenomenon nobody'd seen.
But think how important that was, that you're out. And I'm sure when the new movie came out, they would show them at the barracks on your nights off.
And what is sad is Bud Abbott and Lou Costello during the war effort did so much stuff for the government. And then the government turned around and sicked the IRS on them.
Yeah.
And ruined them both financially.
What do they call those ISO shows or what? USO shows?
USO shows, yeah. They would do that. They would be on bond drives, selling war bonds for the war effort. A lot of big stars in Hollywood and on radio used to do all that sort of stuff, but they were very involved in all that.
But their big movie being Buck Privates, they were so associated with servicemen.
Yeah.
But I looked it up. In the war years, they were putting out 5 to 4 movies per year. Now, I know people at home are watching it, but this must have been wildly popular with the guys out, in the military, in the trenches and stuff.
Well, think 1941 to 1951. They're in the top 10 box office stars 8 times out of 10 years.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. It's interesting. They came from burlesque with strippers and all that, although not the kind of strippers that we have today.
No.
And it was clearly burlesque comedy that they were doing. Were they risque?
That's what's interesting. They weren't risque. They were just so good.
Were they clean, Larry?
Yeah, they didn't feel the need to work blue. And I find that an interesting choice because the cool thing is Bud Costello grew up in the entertainment business. So he had a whole life of watching comedy teams and stuff.
Yeah.
And he was the one who was, if we're really good, we'll be able to grab them without having to do the blue stuff.
Were they doing like mob clubs doing stuff?
Like Jimmy said, they were up in front of the strippers and the variety acts that you would have. Burlesque was kind of like adult vaudeville. It was a variety show, but a lot of titillation and a lot of dirty sketches. And
it's interesting. Burlesque humor has a certain feel and look to it. Phil Silvers is another one who came up through that. And if you watch some of his stuff, that's very much what he did. I think the interesting thing is because you're dealing with all these semi-naked girls, because I don't know if they got completely naked back in the day, but they certainly got into a revealing state. Their comedy had to grab your attention. Otherwise, the audience was just going to drift off. So burlesque became something loud and weird and over the top.
Yeah, it was very physical. A lot of people go, ooh, Bud Abbott hits Lou Costello a lot. Well, the reason he did that was he was a good straight man. And he knew you had to have sympathy for the funny guy. And the funny guy gets way more attention if you're constantly hitting him and putting the focus on him.
Can I just ask quickly a Canadian connection? How do we do a comparison between Abbott and Costello and Canadian legends Wayne Schuster?
They did burlesque, although they toned it down a little bit more. It was less physical. Wasn't as slapsticky as the other.
And they were more of a sketch duo.
Yeah.
When their routines, like they would do Shakespeare Does Baseball, they would come out and do a scene. Whereas Abbott and Costello, it was, here's Abbott and Costello, and they're just going to come out and be Abbott and Costello.
In the early years, was there chemistry between the two of them, or were they just really savvy about the technical parts of their art?
Well, Bud Costello, because Lou was a fill-in comic, he was leaving Hollywood because he went out there to be a Hollywood guy. He did some stunt work. It wasn't going well for him. So he was heading back home and crossing through Ohio. He got a job at a theater being what they called at the time a Dutch comic. And he would work with different straight men who didn't have a funny guy.
Right.
Bud Abbott. And Bud Abbott's wife told him, look, you and him together are magic. That's chemistry. I think Bud Abbott, growing up in show business, was smart enough after seeing that many different duo acts to go, yeah, you're right. This worked.
You can always tell a comedian who knows what he's doing versus somebody who's up there who's kind of waffling around. Yeah, they might be funny, but they just don't have the control that the other comedian does.
And a lot of people have to remember, not only were they funny, but they were funny doing a lot of stock routines. In burlesque and vaudeville, you could have a straight man and a comedian be put together because you just go, okay, we're going to do the Yancey Street bit, then we're going to do the owl bit, then we're going to do the bit about the cafeteria, and everybody knew those bits.
That's an interesting component to it. It's almost like Shakespeare where, Hamlet is always Hamlet, no matter matter who's doing it or under what circumstances, this would get passed around. Everybody.
But you put your nuance on it.
Exactly. Now, the movie itself, this is a unique idea, teaming them up not with one, but with three monsters, as it turned out, universal monsters, I might add. What's your take on that? Was that a genius idea or just luck?
I think it was a genius idea, and they were the very first monster comedy movie.
Yeah, prior to that, we had things like ghosts and zombies, and you had people like Bob Hope and the Bowery Boys and the Three Stooges doing something that involved a ghost, for instance, but they never did the Universal characters.
No, and I think Universal was smart that they got Lon Chaney Jr., the original Wolfman, to play the Wolfman.
Right.
They got Bela Lugosi to play Dracula. They didn't get Boris Karloff, but Boris Karloff appeared in 2 of their later horror movies.
It was interesting. He didn't do it. Do you know why he didn't want to do the movie?
He thought it was undignified or something.
Yeah, he thought they were going to make fun of the monster.
And that's why the movie works, because they didn't.
Yeah.
Because they didn't make fun of the monsters. Also, like I say, the fact they got Bela Lugosi to play Dracula, they got Dracula to play Dracula. They didn't get another actor. They got the Dracula. That would be like about maybe 15 years ago, a comedy duo doing a movie, and it's Warwick Davis as Leprechaun. It's Robert Englund playing Freddy Krueger. That's also what makes that movie magic.
It's interesting. Do you know how many times Bela Lugosi actually played Dracula?
Is it like twice?
Twice.
The original and Frankenstein with Abbott and Costello.
Yeah, but he had played it once before. Do you know about that?
On stage.
I thought I was going to catch you on that one, Larry. But yeah, he was on the Broadway show, which was quite the hit in its time in the 1920s, I think it was.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why they made the movie. They bought the rights for it. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, one of the reasons you didn't see any of these characters prior to this was that Universal owned the rights to all of them, and they never licensed them to any.
Right.
So if you want to do a horror movie, you were zombies or ghosts, nobody ever thought about creating a brand new, spanking new monster like they did today.
I know the Stooges met Frankenstein in the show. Was that before the movie, this maybe?
This is the very first horror comedy.
Certainly featuring the Universal.
Yeah.
You can
Monsters.
make the argument that Hold That Ghost.
I'm like, that's
the
a ghost.
Ghostbreakers or any of those.
Yeah. Okay, it's the first monster movie comedy.
Because I was going to say the Addams Family.
They were a comic strip. They were a TV show in the 60s.
Yeah, but
after. Okay.
It predated Charles Adams did the comic. It was usually a single panel.
What was all the Munsters? Was this after
Munsters is TV in the 60s.
Okay, so this was early.
This is like, this beats them all. This is the granddaddy.
Okay.
And Lou Costello hated the script.
Yeah.
He hated it. He said, my 5-year-old daughter could write something better. And then they drove a truckload of money up to his house. And he said, oh, it's Shakespeare.
It's interesting. I read that story too. And I'm not sure how much I should read into it because it's not a bad movie when you see it. It's actually very good.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I'm thinking it might have been a negotiating ploy more than anything else.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Can I just say that all three of us,
right,
including my, at the time, 4-year-old son, went and saw this in the theaters. And for a 4-year-old, he made it through the movie.
It's a really good movie.
Think about that.
Yeah.
This movie
held his attention.
Larry had put this together. He gathered us all together, and there's a bunch of comedians ranging in age from the very young, like yourself, and what have you, up to people like myself.
Me,
and,
you, and Wes Herrick.
Yeah, exactly.
And we all came and watched this movie at the Westdale Theater.
Had breakfast at the Maple Leaf, went and saw a matinee of Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, went for coffee afterwards, and the ironic thing was, the next movie we all got together to go see like that was Young Frankenstein.
How apropos. Anyway, let's scare up the people responsible for this movie. It was directed by Charles Barton. Now, he did a lot of TV, including multiple episodes of Family Affair and Petticoat Junction. He's also a favorite director for a lot of the Abbott and Costello movies. Interesting side point. Do you know who was in charge of animations for this movie? Because there was the animation to the bat for Dracula.
Walter Lantz.
Oh, my God. He knows it. Who's famous for?
Woody Woodpecker and Andy Panda.
Yes. 2 minor cartoons, I think, that have almost all been forgotten. I think the last time we saw them in something was in Who Framed Roger Rabbit when Woody Woodpecker had a bit part in there. I don't think he even went, ha.
Yeah, which is sad because Woody Woodpecker rocks.
My son, yesterday, he just got into Woody Woodpecker through the new movies. And then I showed him the old cartoons and he said, those computer ones suck.
Oh, that's funny.
Anyways, to continue, the writer...
Was that your Woody Woodpecker?
No, that was me clearing my throat. Do you know this? Who did the voice of Woody Woodpecker?
Walter Lance's wife?
You're right.
Yeah, I thought so.
You can't get Larry. Larry's is AI when it comes to
invented
nerd.
Woody Woodpecker on their honeymoon. They were in a little cottage and the woodpecker wouldn't knock it off.
Anything nerdy under 1970, Larry is a supercomputer.
And it was written by Robert Lees, Frederick I. Rinaldo, John Grant, and also given a character credit were Bram Stoker and Mary Shelley. This amuses you.
Yeah, I just think it's so funny to shout out Bram Stoker.
And the cast included Lou Costello, Bud Abbott, Lon Chaney, Bela Lugosi, Glenn Strange, Lenore Aubert, Jane Randolph, Frank Ferguson, and Charles Broadstreet. The estimated budget was $800,000, and the estimated box office worldwide was $4.8 million. And converted to modern dollars, that movie took in $106 million. Not a bad return.
Crazy.
Usually horror movies or even comedies, they don't do that well. So that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Interesting. Did they ever really meet Frankenstein?
No, because the monster is the monster. Frankenstein is the doctor who made the monster.
That's exactly right. The monster is now called Frankenstein unless they're pedantics like you and I. It's kind of like the Thin Man series. The Thin Man in the very first episode was the guy who got murdered, but they did 4 more, and William Powell became the Thin Man, and they talked about the Thin Man, and that's it. He just became identified with the role.
They're actually remaking it. It's called Ozempic Dude. Hey, by the way,
how long have you been sitting on that one?
By the way, if you want to ask questions and make the person look like an idiot, you might have to direct it to me at this point. Larry knows everything.
You know, one of the interesting things about Who Framed Roger Rabbit, it was such a fun episode. And anybody, if you haven't listened to it, I'd go back and listen to it. We actually ended up with the author of Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
He listened to the episode. Larry is so good on these things. And this is the reason why I wanted to do this one, because he just is such an encyclopedia of knowledge about this stuff.
Wait, the author of the book, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, listened to Larry?
Listen to our podcast.
Yes, and he said we got most of it right, and he enjoyed it, which was one of the biggest highlights of my life.
Mine too.
Well, shout out Bram Stoker and Mary Shelley if you're out there.
Give us a call.
Is there enough of a plot to give a synopsis, Larry?
Yeah, it's an easy plot. It's great because it doesn't start with Abbott and Costello. It starts with Larry Talbot, who is the Wolfman, over in Europe, knowing that the Frankenstein monster is being shipped and Dracula is going to be in Florida to get it and all this stuff. That's the whole plot. Them kind of helping Larry Talbot stop Dracula from putting Lou Costello's brain.
Which would be a big upgrade.
Which would be a good upgrade. They wanted a more tame and timid and easier to control brain in the monster.
It's interesting because quite often when you have something that has a lot of monsters with it, and I don't know, I imagine, Ryan, you could tell me, when they do these Predator, Nightmare on Elm Street things, does it make sense when the characters come together? Or is it just like, yeah, we want to put them together, we're going to make some money?
Oh, you mean like Alien versus Predator and all that?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's never done well, generally.
Because the interesting thing about this one is that they bring the 3 monsters together, and it kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
It works.
Yeah, that's very rare. The Alien franchise and the Predator franchise are still highly regarded.
Right.
Alien versus Predator, dog poop.
Yeah.
And this has happened before. And usually when they do these kind of things, it's like a Hotel Transylvania. That's like the equivalent for kids.
Yep.
All the monsters come together. And they've had some sequels in it, but it's still so silly. But I will admit, what I liked about this movie, Abbott and Costello's role made sense, and they weren't introduced until they needed to be.
Yes.
And I like that. And it reminds me, I know it's a crappy version, but the Ernest movies, I like those Ernest movies where Ernest Saves Christmas. There's almost like an Abbott and Costello in the Ernest movies. It's the 2 guys that working the warehouse and all the reindeer.
That's actually a good observation. Those 2 guys, I think, definitely were not as good as Abbott and Costello, but they were channeling that kind of a relationship.
Right.
And in that movie, they don't show up until Santa's reindeer show up in Florida once again at the luggage thing, and they start going over, and they're trying to get the reindeer coming out. And I swear it's got to be an homage to this movie.
Oh, you know what? I never made that connection, but I think he's right because Abbott and Costello are working in a freight office.
Right.
Same scenario, but with they lay it out a little bit different.
And he does a great stunt in that freight office.
Which
it's
one?
so cool that Lou Costello used to be a stunt man.
Oh,
they
I think I
put
know.
him on the top, and it must be 18 to 20 feet tall. They put him on a stack of crates, and Bud Abbott throws a rope to Lou Costello and then pulls it down, and Lou Costello comes down with it and then hops off it at the last minute. And when you rewatch it, I rewatched it a few times and slowed it down even. It's him.
Yeah.
It's not a stunt man.
Well, we were talking about that on an earlier podcast. We appreciate when the actors are the stuntmen, and there's just something unique about the lead actors taking that big risk.
Glenn Strange ended up playing Frankenstein. He did play him in the classic Frankenstein style with the arms out front for most of the time.
Yeah.
Do you know where that came from? I do know, and I've told you in the car.
I don't remember.
Well, you have no idea how that thrills me that I have at least one thing I can surprise you with. In Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, he was blinded and started walking around with that peculiar gait and his arms out. And it just caught on over time that today, that's what you associate the Frankenstein monster with, is this guy walking around almost straight-legged with his arms out in front of him.
Oh,
almost
but
like a
he's actually
zombie.
blind.
Almost like a zombie.
Because even when I was a little kid, we used to walk around. If you did Frankenstein, you did the stiff leg walk. You stuck your arms out, and you just kept going, crush, kill, destroy.
What can you say about Lon Chaney reprising his role as the Wolfman?
Okay, first of all, I don't know why Lon Chaney hated this movie. He said the opposite of what we say. He said it kind of demeaned and made fun of the monsters. And I'm like going, not at all. His character in this movie, to me, he's the hero in this movie.
Are we sympathetic to him?
Yes, because he doesn't want to become the Wolfman. He wants to stop Dracula. He helps out Abbott and Costello and tries to be their friend. And in the end, who kills Dracula? The Wolfman. When Dracula turns into a bat to escape, the Wolfman jumps out, grabs him by the wings, and brings them both to their death.
Oh, I'm saving this one for the end because this is my observation. We are going to revisit that.
All right.
But not till a little bit later.
Now I'm scared.
It's interesting that the other two monsters were literary monsters. Lon Chaney, the Wolfman, is not.
No,
he's from folklore, isn't he?
Yeah, Wolfman, werewolf, been around forever.
It's not based on a story, right?
No.
Yeah, no, it's based on ancient folklore, a man-beast, and that's been around forever, especially under the full moon.
Yeah, or every morning before my coffee.
In the original Wolfman movie, it was a gypsy curse.
Yes, that's right. What did you think of the transformation? Now we got no CGI. This is all either practical special effect. His face transforms on screen.
It was wicked because, they took hours to do that. Have him lie there, not move, add a little makeup. Have him lie there, not move, add a little makeup.
I had seen a picture of them doing him, and they seemed to have some sort of, I don't know how to describe it. It went around underneath of his chin and up the side of his head, primarily to hold it in position so he couldn't move while they made the changes. Then they would remove it and then...
Stop motion?
Not stop motion. Well, to the degree that it's a bunch of...
Like how they do claymation almost?
Yeah, they layered makeup on him, but he couldn't move. Because if he moved his head at all, you would see the motion. There'd be that blur going on.
Yeah, so they kind of put his head in a vice almost.
Yeah, basically.
Oh.
And then built it up over time. I don't know how long it took to do that.
Also, for horror movie fans, one of the most important things for horror movies that happened in this movie was they realized they didn't have time with their budget to spend hours and hours and hours and hours of applying the makeup. So the makeup guys on this movie were the first guys to invent the idea of using latex rubber preformed pieces that you glue onto the face.
For the Frankenstein monster?
Yes, for the Frankenstein monster. It was all rubber pieces that they glued on, and that was the first time they ever did that.
So it took something like 5 or 6 hours to make up Karloff as the monster. It was a long process for the original.
Apparently the joke was when they put the rubber head, the square head on the top of Glenn Strange, at the end of the day when they would pull it off, it built up so much sweat that it would actually like come pouring out.
Yeah. It was like you just had a shower coming down his face.
Yeah, I hear Hollywood stories of that era, and it's amazing some people like just didn't die on set.
How scary is the horror in this movie? Horror today is a lot more blood, guts, and what have you.
I'm sure in the late 40s, this was a super scary movie.
I will say my son thought that the start of the movie was scary. And midway through when was there a castle? I remember there was
that's Dracula's castle on the island.
He actually told me that it was with the music and stuff and his death look, can he kind of hypnotize you with his look?
Yes, Dracula can hypnotize you.
Yeah, he told me he didn't like him looking at him.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and that's even now. But I will say, I just want to quickly say that you said about horror. Horror is making a huge renaissance for one reason. They're cheap to make.
Yeah.
And right now, times are tough. So they're coming back, and you can make a horror movie in about 30 days even now and pump it out. But horror comedy really has come in ebbs and flows. And I like knowing that this was the gold standard because guess what's coming back? And everyone's all excited. The classic of my generation, it's called Scary Movie franchise.
I hate those movies.
And I hate them because what it does is it takes a horror movie and makes it so parodied that it means nothing. But like you're saying, and it's making me mind blown, is they made a really good horror movie that just happened to have Abbott and Costello in it. And I don't think a modern version of this exists, except for maybe you would argue Scream was considered a parody, and it was, in the end it was a little silly, but it was a real horror movie, and that's it.
The sad thing is, name over the last 30 years an actual comedy duo. That's why we don't get a lot of these movies anymore. They sometimes
over the last 30 years?
Actors. They sometimes pair up actors, but there hasn't been a really big comedy duo.
That's interesting, because I was going to ask you that, because we don't see that very much anymore. The whole concept of two people that make a lot of movies together, like Bob Hope and Bing Crosby, they weren't necessarily a comedy act on the road, but they brought them together because they work so well together. You could say the guys in
Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder,
right?
That might be the last pair.
David Spade and Chris Farley, I thought were pretty good together in the couple of movies that they made together.
That's the best example.
And they're good because David Spade in those movies, he plays the straight man, and because he has great comic timing. And setting up and reacting to the big goof.
They didn't have that longevity that we're talking about. There was a couple.
They're separate. Yeah. That's what I mean. Think about it. Us as stand-up comedians, I want you to name a comedy duo. Like they are associated with each other.
Cheech and Chong is the one I think.
That's it.
That's the 70s. You
go
Rowan and
Martin. 70s.
You can go back to Rowan and Martin, but it's the same deal. You have to go back over 50 years to find that kind of persistent, not occasional.
That they always work together.
And you're right. The David Spade, Chris Farley, but it was cut short from his death. But even then, they had parted their separate ways. They did Tommy Boy, they did Black Sheep. And then,
that's it.
And that was it. But they were good.
They were really good.
Let's get back to this movie. There's a lot of slapstick here because that's Abbott and Costello, and that's the nature of burlesque.
Yeah.
But what about the script? Is it a good script?
It's a really good script. I always think that with a comedy, you need to have at least a story we can follow. If it's just a joke fest, then you're kind of screwed. And this is different than a lot of other Abbott and Costello movies, because other Abbott and Costello movies, it was almost like the movie plot would stop and they would showcase a burlesque bit. Then the plot would go for a bit, it would stop, and they would showcase another burlesque bit. In this, they don't do that. Everything they do in the movie, even their little routines, all serve to move the plot forward. And that, to me, is what makes a good script. Every joke, every scene, every piece of dialogue moves you further ahead in the story.
What about the jokes themselves? Were there good jokes written into the script?
I think so. I love the one because he's got two women chasing him,
Right.
Lou Costello, and Bud's like, why can't you share? And he's like, oh, like you shared those other two. He goes, I share with you. And he goes, yeah, the girl you got me, she had one tooth. There was so much bridge work when I was kissing her, I had to pay tolls. Like it was like...
That's a solid, good, funny, clever joke.
I looked it up just recently, and they said this movie was deemed, retrospectively, as one of the Library of Congress has put it in. And
did it, yeah.
Yeah, and it was voted 56th best comedy movie of all time. That's huge.
Out of 100, yeah, in the 20th century.
That's huge.
Are there some constants in the Abbott and Costello movie you see still in this one, like beyond a relationship?
Yeah, it's very funny. It's always Lou trying to convince Bud of what's going on. And I think as an audience member, that adds to the comedy.
Especially the uncrating scene. I
Yeah.
can remember that being a kid and seeing this on TV. We might have been watching the same Saturday afternoon. And it came on, and I did find it spooky.
Oh.
But I also found that scene with him, I thought it was hysterical at the time when the monster is doing stuff and he's trying to get Bud to look and see what he's seeing, and he can't see it, and Lou can't get the words out. The candle is moving on black.
His famous doing the...
Yeah.
And that candle bit
Right.
was in the movie Hold That Ghost. They recycled that bit, and they also recycled Lou thinking that Bud is in costume. That when he fights the bear in Hit the Ice,
Right.
he thinks it's Bud in a costume.
Oh, I
when he
remember that.
fights the werewolf, the Wolfman in this movie, he thinks it's Bud in a costume. And I love the fact that they repeat a gag, and it feels fresh.
Because they did not like doing new material. They liked the familiarity of the old burlesque stuff. So they didn't really break a lot of new ground.
He hits them a lot.
He hits them a lot.
Every movie, every TV show, every routine, he does a lot of physical stuff with them.
Yeah, but that's very consistent when you think of the Three Stooges.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly the same stuff.
Was Laurel and Hardy similar?
They were pre-Abbott and Costello. They were from the silent era. But they never made
But
a
did
horror
they hit
movie.
each other?
No.
It's always the skinny guy and the big guy.
Always got to
Yeah.
be a physical difference.
Yeah,
Me
yeah.
and my partner, it was the little bald guy and the tall guy with the mustache and the hippie hair.
It's a very common motif because we have an easier time feeling sorry for a smaller person. When you're the taller person, you're assumed to have all these attributes. You're tall, you can do this, you can do that, women love you,
Yeah.
And the small guy is always the poor little schmo.
Martin and Lewis were the same height, but when you watch them, Jerry Lewis seems shorter because Jerry Lewis put on a posture
He hunched
so
him.
that he would look shorter than Dean Martin.
He physically hunched over.
Yeah.
And then he was also a very skinny guy at the time.
And he would wear bigger clothes.
Yep, so they hung off him. Watching Lou Costello here, do you see any influences, other actors that are maybe influencing the way he performs?
I think they influenced a lot of people. As far as him,
I got two.
he's
And
kind of
you-
unique, but go ahead.
Well, one I would say to some degree is Curly Howard from the Three
Yeah.
Stooges. I think there's elements of the way he'll move. People forget Curly Howard was a stooge, but he was also so graceful on his feet for a big man. He moved around very well, as does Lou Costello.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a Shemp guy.
You're a Shemp guy?
Yeah, I am too.
Well, I shaved my head just for this podcast and for Curly, and now I feel like I did it for nothing. The other one was, and I thought in this movie, was Bob Hope when Lou was trying to be the ladies' man with the
Right.
women. I thought I saw, back in the classic Bob Hope movie time where he's this coward he's not a ladies' man, but he tries to come across as a ladies' man.
Bob Hope to me is Daffy Duck in Perkins.
Do you have a highlight scene?
Oh, I like the one where he's strapped to the gurney.
Just to set this up for our audience, they're about to do the transplant of Lou's brain into the monster's brain.
Right. And suddenly there's all the monsters are in the room. Everybody's in the room. Everyone's running around doing crazy stuff, and it's completely dangerous. There's all this electronic equipment and everything like that. And the Wolfman is the Wolfman, and Dracula's there, and Frankenstein's there. And they keep poor Lou is strapped to a gurney, and it just keeps being spun around and moved out of the way and all kinds of stuff. And I just love it. It's just like physical.
It is a great scene. There is a wonderful fourth wall breaking moment that I absolutely love in this movie. It's during that whole episode. Lou's on the loose, and now we got the monsters chasing Bud and Lou. And Lou grabs a tablecloth underneath of a candle on a table, pulls it. The candle doesn't move, as if you know how to do it, that's what happens. But he gets it, and he turns to the audience, and he gives a look right at the camera like, can you believe this happened?
Can you believe I pulled that out?
It's so
then
perfect.
Then he'll do a little kind of like a,
Apparently there's a scene in there where Bud was sitting on the monster's lap, the Frankenstein monster lap, and they had to tape it so many times because Luke kept changing it. Do you know this story?
Yes, there's a great YouTube video you can watch that's bloopers from this movie.
Right.
And that's when you see the genius of Lou Costello. Because he was always working in scenes and improvising stuff. Like that scene where the monster punches through the door.
Right.
Lou's head wasn't supposed to be there to get punched. It was supposed to punch through the door and try to reach around to find the guys.
Right.
That's it. Mm-hmm. But Lou Costello, without telling the director or anybody, leaned into it so he'd get the fist in the face.
How does a comedy work with the tension that's necessary to be in a horror movie?
I think it works great because the monsters are scary. And I think it's the two emotions. Comedy and horror are the only two media where you actually have an out loud reaction. You scream or you go, ah, or you laugh. Unlike a drama where you sit there for 90 minutes and then think about it afterwards. It's cerebral responses. It's instinct to be scared and to laugh. And when you put the two together, I think it just works really great.
It's interesting you brought up Ernest because the Ernest movies I never ever really liked. I'd watched them. They're like light diversions that I keep going into with this hope that, well, this one will keep me occupied for the hour the movie is long, but it never seems to work out that way. And I include Ernest Saves Christmas, and those movies miss the integrity of a rational story that's going on that he can operate against. He's just irrational, so they go, okay, bring somebody in who will just accept him as being irrational. Nobody ever does that.
And I will just say, and if you have another movie, Ernest Scared Stupid is actually a movie that has scary scenes, especially for kids. Do you remember that movie? But it's definitely influenced from this. I don't know. I think you're onto something, how it doesn't feel like vignettes. It doesn't.
Okay, I feel I'm at the point of this podcast. There's more to come, but I feel I'm at the point now where I can discuss how each of the monsters is dispatched. You obviously like the Wolfman and Dracula going down and Frankenstein's monster getting burned. Do you want to speak to that, Larry?
Yeah. Can you repeat that? I want to understand.
All right.
I want to understand the question.
I know what it is. I'm going to tell you because I feel like I am baiting you. And
okay.
I suspect that I am. What gets me about the deaths of the three monsters is none of them dies. First of all, Dracula cannot be drowned. The Wolfman has to be shot with a silver bullet, and Frankenstein has been on fire before and fallen into the water and survived.
Well, my gosh, I can't believe they never made a sequel. Wow. That's amazing.
I'm right, aren't I?
You're absolutely right.
This is the highlight of my day right now. My first reaction in all the time I have ever watched it, and I actually own the Blu-ray DVD, and I watched it again for this podcast, but it wasn't until I started thinking about this that it occurred to me, wait a minute, Dracula can't drown, the Wolfman can't drown.
Right.
So it was just an interesting...
Then again, they broke a lot of rules because they screwed up at one point, and you can see Dracula in a mirror.
Ooh, I missed that one.
Yeah, he goes to bite, I think it's Dr. Mornay. He goes to bite her, and you can see him in the mirror. I wanted to mention just a little piece of trivia a lot of people don't know, and I kept trying to find the guy's name this morning, and I couldn't. Abbott and Costello, when they made this movie, brought a burlesque comedian buddy of theirs.
Oh, yes.
And he would stage pie fights and walk into scenes sometimes just to break up the mood and to keep the set light. And
as a matter of fact, what's his name? Dracula.
Bela Lugosi.
Bela Lugosi did not like that.
Did not like him at all.
No, he didn't. It was okay when it was done. But when you were filming, he was a serious actor.
Yeah, he got mad when that guy followed him down the stairs in a scene.
I've seen that on YouTube.
And he was like, it's okay to have these shenanigans when we're not filming.
Boy, I got scared just listening to your voice.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite monster?
In this movie?
Yeah.
I think Bela Lugosi, he's getting second place. I think Bela Lugosi, it was Dracula from the 1930s movie.
Right.
But Lon Chaney Jr., you really feel for Larry Talbot. In that whole movie, you really feel how just he's a man at the end of his rope from that first phone call at the beginning of the movie through the whole thing and him going, no, you've got to lock me in this room. Don't you understand? I really like that dichotomy of the Wolfman. You're someone who becomes a monster that doesn't want to become a monster. Dracula's evil because he's a vampire. The Frankenstein monster's evil because he's the Frankenstein monster. But Larry Talbot
has good intentions.
Yeah.
It's like inner demons.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even there. It's out of his control.
Yeah.
You know what? It's interesting. It just suddenly hit me. He is a precursor to the Incredible Hulk.
You're right.
Oh, yeah.
I always thought of the Incredible Hulk as Jekyll and Hyde, but now you're right. It is. It's the Wolfman, but instead of a full moon, it's when you get angry.
I'm 2 for 2 on these things today.
Wow, man. You've given me
You know what?
This has been
back to the balcony.
Is there anybody in the movie, though, who did seem dispensable?
You know what? And Abbott and Costello hated this. Side romance stuff. The dude who I can't even remember, who's hardly in the movie.
The professor.
That ends up falling for Lou's other girlfriend, Sandra. Yep. And it was the same with Marx Brothers movies. Even as a kid, I was into comedy like other Canadian kids are into hockey. And when I would watch the movies, I would get pissed when suddenly it's the romantic subplot scene.
Yeah.
And they hated it. They kept going to the studio going, why do we have to have this in our movies?
Would you like to have seen more monsters in this movie? The Creature from the Black Lagoon, maybe, or the Mummy?
Well, they did do the Creature of the Black Lagoon in a TV appearance.
Right.
Because Invisible Man at the end of the movie.
I was going to say,
they were originally going to have, I think, the Invisible Man and the son of Frankenstein or something in the movie, and they were pulled out. So I think it's just the right amount of monsters.
Monster.
And you were asking what scenes I like?
Yeah.
One of the best lines in the movie is McGonagall, the guy who runs the House of Horrors.
Right.
When they're on the island where the castle is and they're at the masquerade ball and they're all running away from the monsters and stuff, Lou sees McGonagall and he goes, "Hey, are you still looking for your exhibits?" And he goes, "Yes." And he goes, "One of them just went that way."
There's a certain innocence to the movie, isn't there? By today's standards, but was it sophisticated, do you think, back in the day?
I think back in the day, you have to remember the 1930s Dracula was scary to people. The 1930s Frankenstein was scary to people. So was the Wolfman. Yeah, I think at the time...
What was this, 48?
48.
Yeah, at the time, it would have been scary and funny at the same time. And not hokey. We're looking at it now with the perspective of over 70 years worth of movies since then.
I think we're going back to the roots of classic movies, 20s or 30s, or early 30s.
It's a creepy movie.
It's creepy. It's actually, it was silent, so it might have been the 20s.
Yeah, it was the 20s.
We're kind of getting back to, the roots of things. And I hope that we can get back to classic origin horror movies, because I think they're remaking Frankenstein with Guillermo
Well, they had
del Toro.
that big debacle at Universal. This is what's funny. Universal owns the most iconic monsters in film history. They own The Invisible Man, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Frankenstein, The Mummy, Dracula, The Wolfman, The Creature from the Black Lagoon. All Universal. Then Universal, because of the whole Marvel phenomena of create your own cinematic universe, they tried to do a dark universe, and we're going to reboot The Mummy and Dracula and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and they totally
botched
the bed.
Yeah.
The idea has some merit, I think, because those old movies are great, but it's almost like you need to make them in color, which is a huge thing for so many people. They immediately tune it out if it's not in color anymore. To do it and stay faithful to the original concepts, updated a little bit, but don't pander the movie. I think it will stand on its own with most of the same
Plus,
hitting the
black
same
and
notes.
white. I'm sorry. To me, certain horror movies, there's just something about color. I don't know. It just makes it less scary.
Well, Nosferatu, the movie is almost in black. It's so dark.
If you did a comedy with a really great comedy star and you did it properly, you could do a funny Predator movie.
Are you saying
you could do a funny Alien movie, but the Predator and the Alien would have to be actual threats.
So you're saying Dracula Dead and Loving It was terrible?
It's one of my least favorite Mel Brooks movies.
Okay, you guys. I said last time Abbott and Costello had their eyes on another horror comedy idea 3 years before this one was made, but it wasn't going to be a movie. Do either one of you know what it was going to be?
It was going to be a Broadway stage play.
Whoa! Once again, Larry steps up to the plate and gets a grand slam. Anyway, we'll be back next time with... Well, I don't really know, because after scheduling this recording to come out in the summer, I realized it would make a great Halloween episode, so that's what's going to be. Trouble is, that's so far out from now, the middle of July we were recording this. I haven't booked a guest or a movie, so you just have to tune in next time to find out what's going to be happening. Who can follow Larry Smith? Up till this point, nobody, but somebody is going to. To not miss that episode, just hit subscribe right now. And if you got the option, a review and a rating will raise our profile so others can find this podcast among the 15 gazillion other podcasts out there. We really appreciate that. If you want to contact us, you can do so at balconypodcast@icloud.com. We're also on Facebook. Look for the microphone against the red background. And a big thank you to Larry for doing this. And as always, it's been a lot of fun. You really hit the nail on the head when you come to these movies that you know are so much fun to do.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, Jimmy. Seriously. And I'll tell you something. A lot of comics are jealous of the fact that I get to do this show with you.
I'm going to have such a swelled head that Ryan's not going to be able to match it when he stretches his arms out. They won't go around my head anymore. Now, I know it's a little early, but do you have any plans for Halloween? Any shows coming up, or is it too early?
I'm thinking this year I'm going to do a live cartooning show near Halloween, because I do live cartooning comedy shows.
Right.
And as a tribute to a show I grew up on as a kid, I'm going to call it The Hilarious House of Funnystein.
I like the title. And for the record, I know Larry sounds today on this show like he's quite cerebral, but to see him on stage, it's like looking at a skinny, bald Lou Costello. So just be prepared. And what about you, Ryan? Anything exciting in the works for the fall?
Yeah, so I have a cool little show called Hendry's Barbershop, and our Halloween show on October 27th is going to feature Chris MacArthur. However, I know that both you gentlemen I've approached you are going to be on our special Christmas edition.
Ooh.
December 22nd with Larry headlining and you featuring, and we are doing a cool Christmas comedy show, and I'm pretty sure Larry's got some stuff coming up, and you already look like Jacob Marley.
Well, I do have a Christmas set, so that's going to be a lot of fun.
So that would be December 22nd at Hendry's Barbershop. Tickets are always free, and I hope we can all see you there and have a reunion on stage.
That's Hendry's Barbershop in Hamilton, Ontario. And for me, it's more of the usual right here when I go back to the balcony. Stay safe, everybody. Don't get scared.